Well, for those of you who enjoy seeing the 5-color control deck do its thing and have missed watching games with it, I have a real treat for you, I think. Here was an incredibly long game, so buckle your seatbelts and settle in. If you're going to watch the whole thing, it might take a while. Anyway, I did make a miss playing this game too, I'll point it out. Made the game go quite a bit longer. This is the Silver Queen control deck with a few test cards. I'm almost 100% certain that Cyclonic Rift is going to become the Theros Fact or Fiction card, the blue-red one. But otherwise, the deck is pretty good the way that it is. So, my opponent wins the dice roll and goes first and leads off with Preordain. At the end of the match, I'll go ahead and bring up the deck list and you can check it out. So Preordain into Demonic Tutor is never a good feeling. I got down Grim, Stone, and a Peak, setting myself up thusly with Imperial Seal on top, figuring whatever you got, I could just respawn to it. I got a recoil, so okay, I pitch a land and we carry on. So from here, I'm in great shape, and the right thing for me to do was to say go, or to play Grim Monolith and say go, or to play Imperial Seal and say go. So I play Seal. And my opponent tries to make me discard 2 cards. I decide I don't want to discard 2 cards, so I counter it. He removes some sack lands and Imperial Seal from the game. I draw Mind Twist. And here's where I probably messed up. So the obvious next turn for him is send triplets go, and then at the end of his turn I should Cyclonic Rift them back into his hand, untap, Mind Twist his whole hand away, including the triplets. If he doesn't make that play, I just top. But I top first, looking for land so that I can just Mind Twist his hand now. I don't see it, but I see Hinder, so now the play for me, the correct play is to say go. He'll play send triplets, I'll tap out for a Hinder, no problems, and then later on I can follow up with a Mind Twist. But I decide I'm going to get greedy and I go for Twist right now, for 4. Rest in Peace, Notion Thief, Ancestral, Grim Tutor. Good stuff, but I just opened myself up for a triplets if he's got a land, and there it is. So now I'm in a lot of trouble because triplets, of course, is a fairly problematic card for me to face. I actually think it's not as big of a problem as it could be, and the right play for me here was probably just to use top and set myself up with a land and then say go, because he can't actually rift my permanents and he can't counter my own spells, so there's nothing he can do with my hand. But for some reason I wasn't really thinking about that, so I top a Will and bounce his guy. Of course he replays it to stall. Really misplaying these early parts of the game pretty badly. So, of course I can't let him have a Will, so I used a Will and bounce his guy again. And of course he replays it. And so I'm back where I was, minus Will on my deck as a possibility in this game and minus the bounce spell. So terrible playing there. And now I have to recover. So I set up a Mystical Tutor. He looks at a Hinder, knows he can cast whatever he wants, and goes for Arena. Of course it resolves. He gets a little damage in, no point to worry about that. And now I have this problem of send triplets plus Arena. So the solution for triplets is here. I tutor for swords and plow the triplets. But what do I do about Arena? He tries to leak it for whatever reason, so I just pay. He plays a Jace. I'm going to go ahead and minimize his commander. Draws a card off the Jace. It's not really all that great considering he's already drawing with Arena. Jace really is just finding him the cards he's going to find anyway. So I'm not as worried about it. And if he plus 2s Jace, then it kind of helps me out. So, and if he doesn't, it'll kill itself. Anyway, I set it up with the exact order that it was already in. So I was hoping he'd just tap out for triplets here, but he doesn't, wisely. And I draw a model and say go, and then he goes for his commander. So I can hinder the commander. Of course, if he's going for his commander, he's got a counter spell in his hand. He goes for counter, which is a remand, targeting Hinder. Really, he should have remanded his triplets and then let the Hinder resolve and then recast its triplets. Unless he's just really burning to get that triplets in play. Doesn't matter though, because I can counter his counter and get rid of his commander. And then he kills his own Jace, so that's cool. So take a peek, there's not much that I want there, but I do put a remand on top. Play on shuffle away. Take a look again. I was really hoping for a Winter Orb right here. I see Crucible. And I thought about just slamming it down into play, but I realized if I didn't, I could untap the Grim, so I let it go. And then on my turn, I use the Grim to play Crucible. And he responds with a Factor Fiction, I guess digging for a counter. So I give him to Torok, a Signet, or 3 lands. He takes him to Torok and the Signet. And I get to replay my Marshlights. This is fantastic with a top out. And then in order to buy time, I get down to the Queen. He's going to have to spend some mana on his turn to deal with it, so most likely. So, and as long as it's not like Treachery or something, I'm in pretty good shape. So yeah, he does. He spends mana in a card. That's cool. Just stalling. And then my heart kind of sinks when I saw this. He goes for, I thought he was going to play Factor Fiction, but he goes for Recoil to try to kill my Crucible. Not too great when I have a top and a Mind Stone in place, so I eat the stone, and then I sack the top. I'm hoping, I mean, this is potentially 2 cards, so I was hoping to just draw a land here. I draw an actual valuable spell, so Tithe goes away. I know unless he has a 2-mana counter, I can recast Crucible here, no problem. So I draw for the turn and go for Crucible. Since it resolves, I begin the strip lock. 1 and 2. It's not really going to be a lock against him. Not with an Arena active and a bunch of alternate mana sources. But it might allow me to punish his blue hard enough that I'm able to slip through a spell later in the game. So really, and then unfortunately he hymns me. I probably should have played the second strip mine and just cast the top, knowing he had the hymn, but, you know, so it goes. Bad spot since I'm not going to be able to keep shuffling, and then he just deploys tons of lands, so I draw for the turn, and look at that, top decking. So we go Factor Fiction with fingers crossed, and he sets up the piles like that, so I take the 4 pile. I'll let the Fire Ice go. And Remand's not too valuable, but I do have the Strip Mine thing going, and it does mean that, or Mana Leak rather, is not too valuable, but I have the Strip Mine thing going, and at some point there's always the chance that I will be able to leak something. And then taking the 3 lands there means that if I can draw a Scroll Rack, I got potentially 3 spells. So I'm just chilling out, and he gets out Blind Obedience. So if I do draw a Scroll Rack, he'll have a turn before I can use it. And also, because he's able to spend mana to chip away at my life total, while gaining life, that arena is going to be, it's going to be tough to beat him with his own arena, and it's going to be tough to stay alive if this damage continues. So he muddles for a Torpor Orb, which is fantastic, because I don't have any creatures, and other than Queen, and he just hosed his own guys. And I know he's playing Snapcaster, so I was pretty happy to see that. He also just wasted a Muddle. So I drew a Dynamo, strip a Basic Island, and play Dynamo. I strip Basic Island instead of the Duel, because in the off chance, since he's already played a Bog, on the off chance he does remove my graveyard, I won't be able to strip Basic Islands, but there's a chance that I could draw like a Wasteland later and kill the Duels. So he Spell Pierces the Dynamo, but I have 2 mana available, so yeah, I just pay it. So there's another wasted card for him. And pay attention to all these cards he's throwing away, because this may matter later. So he plays Propaganda, another wasted card. Does nothing against me. And I draw. So during upkeep he boomerangs the Crucible. Of course I have to let that go. But I have Mana Leak in my hand, so I draw a counterspell for the turn and just go for Crucible to see if I'm going to have to leak a counter. But he doesn't have anything, so I don't understand that play at all. So kill some more blue, pass the turn. So he plays Esper Charm. I was hoping he'd make me discard 2. I'm going to have 2 lands. But he plays to draw. I've got to let that go. I can't afford to fight over cards when he's got an arena. He's going to get cards. I can only fight over pinpoint cards with less mana on his side. Like the card I'd really love to draw here is this Vandal Blast. Boom, 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 boom. Smoke a bunch of his mana and get him within Strip Mine control range. So he plays another source of blue, and at the end of his turn I untap Grim. And draw a Lotus. So now the interesting thing here is, at this point in the game, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 15 mana. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm actually up mana. It's really crazy, considering that he's been drawing 2 cards a turn forever. So he hits me with his Snapcaster and passes the turn. I draw a worthless Crypt. I'm certainly not going to play it while I'm taking 2 to 3 damage a turn. Kill one of his islands. And I play Queen. Again, the point here is just to get cards out of his hand. I've got enough mana to counter and leak, so it's fine. I go ahead and just burn through, making a couple of guys, making it enticing target. And if he does nothing, I'm going to untap Grim Monolith. So he hits me. I'm hoping he sweeps because I really don't want to keep. I can't keep taking damage from Snapcaster. So if he plays like Day of Judgment again, Wrath of God, for example, he'll sweep away the clock that I'm on, and then that just leaves me with Blind Obedience as my only clock. On the off chance he doesn't, of course, he's on a pretty hefty clock with a commander and an arena going. I was pretty sure the Queen was dead by now. That he had to be choking on removal. He plays Verdict, so that validates that thought. And I go ahead and untap Grim at the end of his turn, I think. Yeah, and then he plays Moat. And it was like, well, I could leak here, but killing him with Queen's not the plan. Queen was just there to remove the clock, and now I don't have to worry about any creatures that he plays if they don't fly. So I just leave it alone. Also, he's tapped out, so I have a window here. So if I top deck like Vandal Blast or something awesome, he's in a lot of trouble. That's not Vandal Blast. So I just continue the Strip Mine progress and get down with attacks. Pass the turn. And I'm able to, even though I have more mana than him, I'm able to tax for 3, which also shuffles. And since I, well, if I can find a way to, as long as I stay below him on mana count, of course, I'll be able to shuffle again and again. So if I have any way to look at the top of my deck, if I regrow top or get a Sylvan or something, then that could come in handy later. But I just draw another doggone land, so continue the pressure on his blue and discard. I'm not going to use Crypt, and I throw away a Painful land, and I throw away Scrub just because I've got enough of those colors. I wanted to try to keep basics in my hand. In case I do draw that Scroll Rack, I'd like to be able to, tax rack as much as possible. And I kept the Misty just because I might want to have a shuffle effect. Who knows if I draw a Jace or something. So he plays another Signet, which is of course damage. And then he plays Chromatic Lantern, and I'm like, dang it! Because with a Lantern in play, I can't really. The chances of shutting down his blue. Every land makes blue, so now that's just not going to happen. But it's not worth countering, and it's not worth countering because it was already a long shot to kill his blue, and the real important thing for this game is for me to push spells through. So the whole point of killing his blue was to push spells through. So if I counter this, and then he has less blue, but he has enough to win a counter war, I've really accomplished nothing. So I just have to let it go. It is an artifact, though, so it's one more reason to draw a Vandal Blast. So there's no point in just randomly shuffling for no reason, so I don't tax. And I draw Teachings. So I had to think long and hard about what to do here. I mean, step 1, Strip Mine is untapped Arcane Sanctum. Step 2 is what? So I know I'm going to Teaching, so I go ahead and just do that now. Well, after my attack step. Oh, no, I guess I didn't. I'm sorry. So I know I'm going to teachings, but yeah. So I waited out. Wait and see what he does first. Actually, by waiting, it gives me the option to react instead of guess wrong when it comes to what I might do. So he goes for Jace, and another shot to me with a blind obedience. Of course, I can't allow Jace, so I attempt to counter him, thinking I'm in a lot of trouble here. Although he doesn't have that much mana left, there's a chance I could leak, and of course I can tutor for a counter if I have to. But surprisingly, that resolves. So, with a little bit of hope, I go ahead and teach. And I teach for... So he taps mana like he's going to do something, and then he doesn't. So I teach for mana drain. And then I flash back to teachings. And I go get Stroke of Genius. So untap, doesn't do anything. It was risky to get the stroke here because, well, blind obedience will kill me soon enough. So again, I continue to attack his mana. Interestingly, he mentioned something like, "What are you trying to strip block me?" and types like LOL. And the answer was no. I mean, of course, I would like to strip block you, but I have no expectation of doing it. What I'm trying to do is mana suppress him so that I can push spells through. So this mana leak in my hand is actually useful at some point in this game. So main phase, I vault, and this is all junk. And then I see this. I can't vault for much because I'm putting myself in blind obedience kill range, but there's a disenchant, a forbid Karn. So I put Shackles or Vampiric at the bottom. Highly unlikely I'm gonna have enough life to use it. Shackles on top. It's not much use for that, I don't think. I put a Karn down because it's expensive. I put Forbid on top of that, and I put Disenchant right on top of that. And I was thinking, okay, so what I do is stroke here for 1, or maybe a couple. Stroke for, like, say, 3. Throw the Disenchant down. And then I have a Mana Leak or Counterspell. And then from there, I'm okay. The problem is, from there, I'm also tapped out. And I was pretty nervous about what might happen if I made that, if I went along those lines. And since I could respond to anything he might do, I figured I'd wait a little longer and hope that he didn't have not only 5 spells, but enough mana to kill me with Blind Obedience on this turn. And I was glad that I did, because he's got a duress. So the first thing I tried to do, of course, is counterspell it. And if this doesn't resolve, if he counters that, I'm going to have to stroke for 3 and then disenchant in response. I mean, I really don't have any other option here. It resolves. So, end of his turn, I untap Grim Monolith. And then draw. And now that I have mana, I declare my attack. I play my Strip Mine, kill his island, and see what he does. So he floats a blue. So he's floating 1, I'm floating 1. His is blue, mine's colorless. So I declare my attack step. And if he's got a trick, like say he's got Impulse or something, he's going to have to burn his Impulse now, probably tapping another land, which means he'll be down 2 or more mana. He's already brainstormed, so it's not brainstorm. So he'll be down 2 or more mana, whatever instant he's got, to my 1. If he casts it, I'll actually be able to use the mana that's floating here and cast a spell in response. So I say I'm going to attack in order to either cause him to cast a spell, or if he doesn't, then this is going to empty from his pool and this will empty from my pool. He'll lose a blue, I'll lose a colorless, and that's a fair trade. So I just declare my attack, and he doesn't do anything. So during combat, I go for Disenchant on Blind Obedience, which of course is killing me. And he responds with and I thought he was playing the counterspell where you exile X cards from your graveyard. But no, he responds with Skeletal Scrying for 6. And he pings me with Blind Obedience while he's at it. And I think just because it's taken so long for us to get to this point that he forgot, I took the Mana Leak pile. So I Mana Leak, and then, as I'm leaking, I'm thinking like, Okay, what else am I going to do? I'm going to stroke for 1 and then 1, 3, 6, 7, play a Karn. If I do stroke for 1 and then play Karn and exile Phyrexian Arena, then my entire game resolves around him not having an answer to Karn. Or I could stroke for 3, 6, 7, 8, or I could draw 8 and then just discard down. And then my whole game resolves around him not killing me. But I also have that forbid on top. So then it was like, well, okay, here's what I do. Stroke for 3, spend 3, 6, 7, 8 mana, stroke for 5, and then discard down and leave the Lotus up for forbid. So that's what I settle on. But he gives up. Turn 23, facing an arena over and over and over and over and over and over, with basically no hand, and him constantly hitting me for damage, and I grind him down into a victory. So I hope you enjoyed that game, my fellow Control fans. Here's what the Queen deck looks like. This is what I was able to manage to engender that victory. If I hadn't misplayed, of course, the game would have been a lot easier. And like I was saying, I think Cyclonic Rift comes out, and the new Factor Fiction comes in. It's going to be sitting right over here, the blue, 2 colorless blue-red Factor Fiction, where you make the piles and they pick which one to give you. I'm very excited about that. I think it makes this deck better than it makes most decks because you can't really let this deck Factor Fiction, and you can't really let this deck draw too many cards because it does very well with very few cards. So if it gets many cards, almost always you're going to get buried and you're going to lose. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I definitely love playing this deck, and it's fun to do it again. We'll see what Theros changes, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.